Welcome back to the Logic channel. Logicked channel, that's hard to say. Where I do nothing but respond to Donny of Daytona 24/7 now, apparently. I guess I'll be done with them eventually. Probably. But I feel like I have to respond to this one. So I'm gonna respond to Donnie's response to my response to his response to my response to him. That's a confusing mess, and I don't know why I'm bothering, but I guess it'll be the last of my responses to Donnie's responses for the foreseeable future.
Donnie responded again!
Well, god damn it. Well, in this round of responses, Donnie made two videos to me, both apologies. The first one about his incorrect interpretation of his telescope footage, and the second one for his false flag campaign. Both of these videos have since been deleted and followed up by a live stream, a large part of which is Donnie whining about me. Which I find really sad because I was pretty much done making this set of responses before that happened, and I actually have a lot of positive things to say here, which I thought was a nice change. But Donnie puts out so many videos and changes his mind so often that I wasn't even able to publish my positive thoughts before he deleted the stuff I was positive about and said a bunch more nonsense about the situation. How am I supposed to keep up with your mood swings, Donnie? Could you let me finish one thing before you toss out some other thing I also want to respond to, please? Man, at this rate I'm going to be responding to Donny of Daytona until I retire. Whatever, that's not relevant right now. I have to take it one thing at a time. So I'll put this nice cheerful response out and then decide whether to proceed with the next one. Special report! Hey, your editing's almost as professional as mine. Recently, a YouTube creator no, this calls for my radio voice. Recently, a YouTube creator, Logicked, set his sights on a small vlogger, Donny of Daytona. Why are you writing about yourself in the third person, Donnie? We know this isn't some journalist writing a news report about you, dude. A lot of claims were made, most likely to teach this newbie how to do this the right way. Newbie? Dude, you've been making videos about pictures of out-of-focus stars since at least August of last year when you put out your Firmament is Revealed with 160 times zoom video. Which, by the way, has 220,000 views, in case my audience needed a reminder of just how small this small vlogger is. By the way, Donnie, you ever heard of image noise or video compression? Might want to look into that and reconsider that video. So what you're trying to tell me here is that the newbie excuse still applies, what, 9 months after you started? Newbie in the sense of not having the slightest idea what it looks like when you're out of focus. That's a joke, right? Like, sure, I wouldn't expect you to be an expert after 9 months, but I would expect that you've at least figured that out. However, I will give you a lot of credit, it's better late than never, and since this video, it looks to me like you've actually managed to take videos of Saturn, Jupiter, and some in-focus stars. For some reason, you're still stuck on this idea that you're filming through water, but whatever, baby steps, right? I'm proud of you, man, honestly. Many called it cyberbullying, but for Donnie, after the initial surprise, had this to say. What you had to say was this.
It's called cyberbullying.
Just in case you needed a reminder. If you've changed your mind about that, as the text seems to imply, just own it, dude. Own the fact that this is what you thought, and then you changed your mind. Take responsibility for your own statements. Don't blame it on some unspecified group of many people. I called it cyberbullying, but I've since changed my mind. Easy, right? Anyway, for some reason, next, you toss in a picture of my face from a video I published a couple years back. I'm not going to show it here because people are annoyed enough about seeing my naked hand skin on my channel. Forget about my whole head. My audience is weirdly puritanical that way. But there's text as well, and it says, "This is Logicked Unmasked, just so we know who we're actually speaking to." Which I find to be such a weird attitude for a religious person. Like, aren't you supposed to be the kind of people who believe the most firmly of anyone that what's important about a person, what makes you who you are, is your soul, your mind, your heart, your spirit, not your physical body? And yet, usually when someone replies back to one of my videos, they whine that they have no idea who I am because my face isn't visible. Some meaningless chunk of meat and bone that says nothing about who I am. I don't know, it's just always funny to see the same hypocrisy playing out over and over again. It's unbelievably predictable. Oh, and to anyone who's offended on my behalf that Donnie put my face in his video, don't be. I made it public, I knew what it meant to have it public. Once you self-dox, or whatever you call it when it's a picture, it's fair game forever. And I really am entertained by the weird face fetish these woo-woo people always seem to have, so I got nothing to be grumpy about. The slide goes on to say, "Hold on to your butts." Finally, for Donnie's reply. Ooh, alright, I'm holding it. Give it to me, Donnie, I need it.
Okay. Alright.
Okay.
First off, let me start off by saying, if you came to this video thinking that this is a versus battle and me trying to make this Logicked person look bad, then you're completely wrong.
Aw, boring. Fair enough, though. We can have a nice, polite discussion instead. Alright, everyone, you can click away to a different video. Nothing to see here.
Actually, what this video is a testimony. It's a testimony to everything I've learned after the two-part series Made on Me. And I figured it was time to speak up in accordance to these videos. And I'll probably lose subscribers over this, but some will be happy to hear me say, and some will be unhappy to hear me say that I am agreeance with you.
Really? After all that nonsense from your first response, now you're suddenly agreeance with me. That's new. I'm cautiously optimistic on you.
I watched the first part, I admit. I was a bit bitter.
Oh, I couldn't tell.
Report it as hate speech, or whatever you deem it as, because it's going against everything we're trying to do here. How am I going to manage to survive that? I need your help. Please. If you watch the video and you seem as bullying, then please report it as bullying. All I'm asking you to do, out of the kindness of your heart, go to the channel. Please appreciate your support if you could just deem that as offensive or bullying, because if you hit report, it'll give you a list of things to report. I appreciate you guys letting me vent about that huge channel bullying me right now, and I would appreciate a little bit of help with that. But yeah, guys, you know, this is the part where we have to bond together. And like I said, I only ask for your help if I really need it. I already got one guy that doesn't even watch my channel that reported him for bullying. It's called cyberbullying. So let's nip it in the bud while we can. God bless.
But after let some time pass and the dust settle, I went back and watched it, and I agreed wholeheartedly about the use of optics.
I don't exactly know what that means. Does that mean no more out-of-focus stars, or...?
Now, even though some things were taken out of context, I feel generally the narrative of the video was correct. I was forced to change up something on my channel because I was only doing one specific type of sky watching. I quickly got into telescopes without really truly understanding refraction and optics from that level. And I was using blurry images to fill a narrative and forcing it upon it, and it came off as very deceitful after looking at it from a different point of view.
Wow, that is a much better response than last time. And a lot more intellectual honesty than I would have expected based on all the videos I've seen from you. Especially how you describe your own actions in negative terms like that. That's not easy to do, especially when you're very emotionally invested in what you're doing. So I guess I have to congratulate you for that. But now that we're here, I'd just like to take the opportunity to point out that this is not just an issue about blurry stars and poor knowledge of equipment. The actual core of my point was that when you see something weird that you don't quite understand, leaping to some convenient, emotionally satisfying conclusion about what it means is not a good way to reach the truth. Because it's possible there's just something about it that you don't know. And that was why I talked so much about experimenting with your equipment. Not because I really care if you know how a telescope works, but because I wanted you to learn to recognize where you lack understanding so you don't fall into the trap of filling those knowledge gaps with comforting falsehoods, and to realize that sometimes there are simple ways to increase your understanding without even relying on anyone but yourself. None of it was really about telescopes or cameras or stars. It's about the importance of exercising critical thought, of recognizing your own fallibility and lack of omniscience, of remaining committed to finding the truth regardless of what feels nice or intuitive to you, of a refusal to build your worldview around fallacious reasoning or missing information. Now, if you'd like to keep making videos of out-of-focus stars, more power to you, man. Nobody has a problem with that, as far as I'm aware. I had a blast making mine. It was kind of fun. It was interesting to see what patterns I could get and what different ways the dust could interact with the lenses and stuff. It was cool. Actually, a lot more interesting than just looking at the tiny points of light when I focused properly. But no matter what you do, just keep in mind that if you see something new, maybe it's not the first thing your imagination leaps to. Speaking of which, you might want to experiment a little bit more with that camera that shows a black sun. If you need help figuring out how to do that, I have a camera with that same problem. I bought it specifically because it has that problem. So I'd be happy to help you figure out some experiments or just come up with some myself. So hit me up with a DM on Discord or Twitter or just email me. I'm perfectly happy to talk to you one-on-one, man, but I don't know how to get a hold of you, so you're gonna have to help me out with that.
And I was only able to see it that way because of you. So I am actually thanking you. Because I want this channel to grow. I have the faith of subscribers to do that, and I believe I will only make that next level if I'm completely transparent.
I hate to say it, Donnie, but judging by what I've seen of your subscribers, and that's quite a bit, I don't think that's gonna matter very much, man. I think you can push whatever ignorant nonsense you want, and as long as you tie it back to the Bible or some zany conspiracy theory somehow, they'll eat it up. But if you really want to be better than that, I'm glad. It hints at some character development. I am still really annoyed about that whole false flag thing, but I can still give you credit where it's due.
And you, my friend, have brought me to that level of transparency. Now, of course, I could go through the entire two-part series and pick little pieces out that I disagree with.
That'd be totally fine if you find yourself in the mood. There's nothing bad and everything good about trying to fact-check and clarify information that's floating around in public. If your criticisms are right, that just means a bit of misinformation has a rebuttal available for people to find, and that can only help society. Of course, if your criticisms are wrong, that doesn't correct anything, but at least it contributes to a culture of debate. And I don't care what you do. If I'm not in the mood to listen to it, I just won't.
But that would just be petty and childish.
No, I disagree. I mean, it does depend on how exactly you approach it, but if you said, for example, I agree with a lot of the stuff you said, but I have these corrections, XYZ, I don't find that petty or childish in the least. If it's just a few really minor things, I guess it could be called nitpicking, but everyone likes a good nitpick sometimes, right? In contrast, though, the way you did it in your last response, where you mostly just denied and backpedaled and stuff, that was less than ideal. But we're beyond that now, I think. And by the way, if you want to talk about some of the places you think I was wrong without making a whole video about it, I'm open to chatting with you in a live stream on my second channel. Super chill, no worries. I have no interest in a shouting match with people who want a good faith conversation.
What I can say as a whole is that you are correct, my friend. I was misusing telescopes to fill a narrative unknowingly, though. I have to say that I wasn't meaning to be deceitful. It just came off that way because of, my misuse or misunderstanding of refractive telescopes.
And reflecting telescopes like your 127 EQ. Just telescopes in general. But yeah, okay, I believe you. There were definitely things in that video that seemed like you must know that what you were saying wasn't true. For example, you saying you'd captured the stripes at Jupiter springs to mind. But those really glaring spots were few enough that I can look past them and take you at your word on this. It's possible you weren't trying to mislead anyone. Maybe you were just misleading yourself. That can happen, no problem.
Now, recently I've held a contest on my channel to give those telescopes away to subscribers for free.
That's nice of you, I guess. I do hope you'll keep on stargazing, though, with a little more information to work with. Your more recent stuff looks way better. There might be hope for you yet. And to be honest, the time when you start to figure these things out is not the time to quit. It's the time to practice. But it's not my business.
I just recently came back from a meet and greet where I gave one of them away. I gave one to a family member, and I'm giving 2 more away to other subscribers that live further away. I'll be sending through the mail. But I decided to do that because I was using equipment that I didn't fully understand because it was new to me.
Sure, but now it's less new to you, and with a little more work, you can get far with it. It's clearly something you're interested in, and I'd really actually hate for you to lose your enjoyment of it as a hobby just because you realized the stuff you were seeing wasn't what you thought it was. Of all the directions I thought this video would go, I did not expect to be sincerely encouraging you to stick with astrophotography right now, but so it goes.
Now, I do have a background in electronics, several vocational degrees. I worked in the field for 20 years, from military clearance level electronics to consumer R&D and repair electronics. Worked my way up the scale because I had a very small education compared to some of the people with master's degrees and doctorates. I was more at the associate's degree vocational level. But I have been doing it since the 9th grade, and I understand electronics, so that's why I went back to cameras.
Back to cameras. I don't think that's really going to help you, Donnie. The principles are the same. As a matter of fact, when you were using a telescope, it's basically just a big camera lens attached to your eyepiece camera, except actually a bit less complicated because it has a fixed focal length and aperture. If you're able to shoot with a regular camera, at least on like pro settings, then you're able to understand shooting through a scope. And if you don't understand the basics of shooting through a scope, you don't understand them with a camera either. And as for this tangent about your background in electronics, that might help you understand certain things about the camera's internals if you want to, say, repair it or mod it or something, but it's not going to make you better at photography. These are totally different knowledge sets. No, I really disagree with your reasons for this decision. That doesn't really make any sense. I mean, obviously, if you feel more comfortable using a telephoto lens or something like that, then switching's perfectly valid, but to do it just because you've worked in electronics design or repair or whatever, I don't get it, man. But again, whatever, none of my business.
I gave away the telescopes in question from your two-part series because I didn't fully understand them, and I got back into using cameras.
You know, it's odd, but this honestly makes me a little bit sad. Sure, apparently you didn't understand what you were doing, but that's not a reason to abandon the whole endeavor, it's a reason to learn. It really does not take a lot to get the basics down. With the equipment you were using, you could have been getting this quality or better videos of Saturn and Jupiter in a day if you decided to learn. What equipment you prefer is obviously up to you, but watching you just give up like this instead of taking the opportunity to improve is, I don't know. Feels bad, man. That was not the intention.
So, really what I'm coming to is the point of a crossroads, that I can now let my guard down after some time has passed and admit that I agree with everything you said about my misuse of optics in those videos you pointed out.
That's fine. Just means you know something today that you didn't know before. And that new knowledge is a tool that you can use to do better things, should you choose to do so. And clearly, whether you're using a regular camera lens or a telescope, you are doing better things now. But don't get scared off from the big boys' toys, Donnie. Just make sure before you take them out, you read up on them a little, play with them enough to understand their quirks, all the same stuff you do with electronics or anything else.
Now, from this point on, I will take what I've learned from this experience and remain transparent. If I obscure an image, I'm going to tell the subscribers or the viewers why I'm doing it, how I'm coming about getting this image, why this image means something to me, and that's as far as it'll go. I will never claim it to be fact.
Okay, but the issue was never really whether you explicitly claim something to be a fact or not. I'm not necessarily saying you're doing this, but I see this all the time from people who want to avoid accountability for spreading falsehoods. They'll show off something they hold a belief about, like your so-called Jupiter's so-called stripes, if you actually did believe that, like you claim, and then instead of just stating it like a fact, which in their opinion it is, instead they try to cover their ass from criticism by tacking on a bunch of pointless extra words, like for example, I think that's Jupiter through the firmament, but that's just like my opinion, man. But they'll try to tell you it's not. They're hiding things from you, in my personal opinion. And then they act like somehow this is supposed to mean that even if they consistently say provably false things, somehow they aren't spreading falsehoods. This denial, this cop-out is pretty meaningless to me, and I'll explain why. The key question is this. Donnie, do you think your opinions are factually true? I think the answer is yes. If you don't think your opinions are facts, that is, true beliefs, then they're not really your opinions, are they? An opinion is something you believe is true. So while it's true that an opinion you explicitly label as an opinion isn't necessarily an assertion that what you say is definitely a fact, it is, by definition, an implicit assertion that you believe it's a fact. And conversely, an opinion you call a fact still just means that you believe it's a fact, not that it's a fact. So from my perspective, whether you call it a fact or an opinion, it's still saying the exact same thing, that you believe it's true. So I don't see any real difference between the statements, "this is Jupiter," and "in my opinion, this is Jupiter." So that's not really an issue I have. The problem I'm talking about when I make these videos is not how you phrase your expression of your opinion. It's the fact that your opinions are disprovable. Easily, quickly, by you with your equipment, and yet instead of taking those basic steps to make sure you're not deceiving yourself or others before you start publishing your opinions on the matter, instead you choose to spend months spreading your uninformed opinions to thousands of credulous people. And like, it's one thing if sometimes you're wrong but you put in the work and sincerely think you're right based on it, but it's pretty clear you don't put in a lot of work, and I'm not entirely sure that you've ever said anything that wasn't wrong. So if going forward you intend to just keep doing the same old thing but attaching an "in my opinion" to every statement with a little asterisk, then you haven't really improved at all. What you need to do instead, if you really care about avoiding deceiving people in the future, intentionally or not, is not just to soften your assertions a little bit with a few "in my opinions," avoid doing the very specific things I debunked you on, and otherwise keep going like nothing's changed. No, what you need to do is try your very best to verify and even disprove your opinion before you publish it, so you can be at least reasonably sure that you're not publishing an endless string of mostly misleading videos. And seriously, I'm not talking about your out-of-focus stars here, I'm talking about your approach to everything before this point, because basically every single claim I've seen on your channel is based on the exact same form of intellectual laziness. Maybe you see that now, I don't know. I haven't got that impression from this video yet, but I really hope you do see that, because it really matters if you care about the truth.
And from the get-go, I never claimed to be a news channel, a fringe news channel, or a truth channel. People just labeled me that.
Yeah, where would they get that idea? But I agree with you, you're clearly not a news channel. That would imply you're reporting on current events, not trying to prove the sun is fake and the sky's an ocean full of amoebas.
I'm just a blogger. That's it. That's all I've ever wanted to do.
Okay, was this in dispute at some point? I'm not sure I understand why you're bringing it up like this. Are you trying to cast off some responsibility for truth and accuracy here? Like, you think it's more acceptable to say any old garbage as long as you assign yourself an unimportant sounding label? If that's not what you mean, please do clarify, but that's kind of what it sounds like. But whether you mean that or not, I really hope you realize that you do have a responsibility, Donnie. The same amount of responsibility as a news reporter or anyone else. If the truth matters to you, and you have a platform where you're telling people how the world is, even just in your opinion, you should at least be trying to present accurate information and solid reasoning by which you arrive at any interpretations of that information. Like it or not, deny it or not, people are going to take what you say about what you film as fact, and they're not going to think very hard about it usually. No matter how smart or dumb an audience is, some percentage of people are going to do that. And most people aren't watching TV or internet videos to do hours of research afterwards. So you have a choice. You can try to be accurate and encourage critical thought, or you can tell people all about your opinions that out-of-focus dust is sky amoebas because something Bible. This is the distinction between someone who cares about the truth and someone who only cares about the bottom line or some agenda.
Because my occupations in life, being a consumer electronics repair person, a barber, I've always had jobs that put me in touch with people, large numbers on a daily basis. So my blogs or vlogs are basically conversations I've had with people, future, past, and present, about different things, conspiracy theories, religion, and such.
Mine too, or at least I have had conversations about most of the topics I talk about in my videos. In fact, it's funny you mention you're a barber, because the first serious conspiracy theorist I ever met was the barber I went to as a teenager, who happened to be a David Icke superfan. Every time I went there, I had a great time talking with him about his latest discoveries in David Icke's books. He's the reason that on this channel I started occasionally joking about reptoids. And come to think of it, after I moved away from there, the next barber I had was also kind of a conspiracy theorist. Less of the lizard people sort and more of the political kind. What's the deal with barbers? Anyway, it sounds like there's a big difference in how you and I approach these conversations. And you don't exactly present your videos as a conversation, do you? You present one perspective as fact. These are Jupiter's stripes, it is in water in the firmament, these are amoebas or blood cells or whatever, and so on and so on and so on endlessly. Whether your ideas happen to come from conversations or not doesn't change the nature of the actual videos you put on your channel, so I don't get what point you're trying to make here.
Now, my recent reconnection with God, not the God talked about in the structured dogma that is all around our neighborhoods, Christian, Catholic, Muslim, more of a spiritual connection that I reestablished about sky watching. So that's what sky watching did for me, and I wanted to share that through a vlog.
That's interesting. Does this reconnection have anything to do with what you actually saw in the sky? Or is what you actually saw not really relevant and it's more of a feely matter of, ooh, the sky's kind of big, that's impressive, therefore God for some reason? It's deeply relevant which one of these options it is, because if this reconnection was based on something you saw, your evidence of the firmament and that sort of thing, and if you turned out to be so dead wrong about that subject and apparently know it, then that reconnection was built on nothing, right? If you feel a certain feeling from believing something that later you find out isn't actually true, but you still have that feeling, shouldn't you ask yourself if that feeling actually refers to anything real, or if it's just a residue of your own self-deception?
Now, some of the sensational claims I make about people on the moon, about the royal family being lizards from a different Palladian galaxy, or it's actually a planet, but you know, all those are rumors floating around the internet. I didn't create them. I was just reciting them because I do a non-scripted video log, and it's just what comes off the top of my head.
Right, so you do a non-scripted vlog where you spout nonsense you heard on the internet off the top of your head, as if it's fact. And that's supposed to be an excuse, is it? Because it sounds a lot worse now than it did before. Like, what are you saying? Are you saying if you took your time and wrote a script, you would have left this stuff out? Well then, if you know you're likely to vomit this stuff if you don't write a script, and if If you care at all about whether the truth wins out over stupid internet rumors, then you should start scripting, right? You don't suddenly lose all responsibility for your role in the spread of absolute nonsense just because you say stuff like, I didn't make it up, someone else did, or it was only in there because I'm too lazy to script or edit.
Now, I post daily, so for me to come up with scripted material every day would be too difficult, so I go off the cuff.
So quantity over truth and damn the consequences. Talk any old nonsense into that mic and call it a day. What kind of attitude is that, man?
And a lot of times, it seems to resonate with people.
Which again makes it even worse. Donnie, you hear a random rumor on the internet, you say it off the cuff, apparently without even really believing it, for no reason other than scripting's hard and you're too lazy to bother. And you really want to publish a video every single day, even if that means you never stop to think about what you're publishing and whether it matters if it's true and whether people are going to believe it. And then it resonates with so many people, i.e. it convinces them of bullshit. And you're fine with that, are you? There's a reason I publish so rarely, Donnie, and yeah, part of it's a little bit of burnout, I admit. That happens sometimes, but a lot of it is that I really prefer to take my time and try my damnedest to get things right. And even when I don't get it right, which sometimes I don't, at least you can be sure I tried, because when I get things wrong, it really bothers me. I hate it. It's uncomfortable and it sucks. If I wanted to, I could be a person like you, just publishing every day, even if that means I just say a bunch of rumors off the top of my head, and it would resonate with a certain crowd. It might make me successful. I'm pretty sure I could succeed very nicely as a conspiracy theorist. I think if I spread rumors about lizard moon people or whatever else some internet random made up, I'd be brilliant at it. I'd probably have a bigger channel than I do now. Does that make it the right thing to do? No. The thought makes me sick. It'd reflect a deep character flaw, a lack of concern for what's real and what's right. That flaw is indefensible, and yet you present it as a defense, Donnie. I don't even know how to process something like that. Well, I'll go think about it. I'm gonna call that part 1. Thanks for watching, everyone. Come on back for part 2 for more of Logicked complains about Donnie complaining. I'm sure you're as hyped for it as I am. Bye!